Two. All right. For a second, I want you to think about where you think the most dangerous regions of the world are right now. A lot of places may come to mind. Pakistan's pretty dangerous right now. Afghanistan is. Somalia, some consider that a failed state. Iraq's pretty dangerous right now. In 2008, 6,200 military and civilian casualties were reported. But would you be surprised that just below us and to the south of us in Mexico, over 6,000 people were killed as well. I'm going to talk to you about the violent drug cartels in Mexico, the war they've been fighting on their own government, the war they've been fighting between each other, and our part in the war as well. Mexican drug cartels have evolved into powerful, well-funded organizations. They've infiltrated in the infrastructure of Mexico's law enforcement. And we've also been the biggest contributor, though, to this violence. We've created a demand for drugs. They're just meeting our demand. New Mexico's drug cartels have evolved into powerful, well-funded organizations. They have their own militias and militaries now. The Cardenas cartel, headed up by Lazaro Cardina, he was arrested in the late 90s and was extradited to the US on drug charges, or drug trafficking charges. But it said that he actually still runs his cartel out of his own prison in the US. So well connected they are with actually our own infrastructure as well. But while he was in jail, the Cardenas cartel made some bonds with other cartels, and they basically made the Gulf Cartel, which we know now is the most powerful, most violent cartel in Mexico. Now their paramilitary or military that they have, they're called Los Zetas. They were originally 30 lieutenants that deserted the Mexican military, the Air Force, and they joined up with Cardenas cartel and basically ran their militia. And since then, they've trained thousands of other Zetas and become a pretty powerful military in Mexico. The thing that really scares a lot of U.S. intelligence right now is they're sophisticated because they're trained in the Air Force under paramilitary, have sophisticated counterintelligence techniques, and they have control over many politicians and municipal police in Mexico as well. These cartels don't have one way of making money either. Aside their in arms trade, hundreds of millions of dollars were laundered in Mexico. And they also stole, the Zetas alone stole $41 million worth of oil that was siphoned off of Mexican pipelines and then sold to unnamed U.S. refineries. We only know this now because they're under investigation, and we found out exactly what the extent of the oil stolen was. They've become so brass in Mexico as well. Their leader, Mateo Diaz-Lopez at the time, was arrested. The municipal police that arrested him didn't know that who he was. And immediately the Zetas found out, and they assaulted the police station. They tried to free him. And dozens of people were injured, 4 people were killed, 2 police officers were murdered. And it just kind of shows you how infiltrated they are into the infrastructure of Mexico's law enforcement. In 2005, the Fox administration launched an investigation into police corruption. And also in 2005, 1/5 of the Federal Investigative Agency was also under investigation. So the same agency that's investigating corruption in the police department is also under investigation. That's how infiltrated they've become. The New York Times reported that 53 inmates broke out of a Mexico City jail. Witnesses say that the guards were involved, and the inmates walked out of the jail into waiting cars and drove off. That's how easy it's become for these cartels. In Nuevo Laredo, it's a border town in Texas, right across the border from Laredo, Texas. They haven't had a police chief in over a year because the last one resigned. There was too many death threats to his family. He didn't feel safe in his job, so he had to resign. His replacement was assassinated. And since then, nobody's filled the place. But the duality of the situation is that we're really the biggest contributors to this violence. 23% of Oregonians, 18 to 25, have used drugs in the last month, or drug users. That's compared to 19% of Americans who are between the ages of 18 and 25 that use drugs. That's a total of 283,000 people in Oregon of all ages that use drugs. That's reported. We don't really know exactly the number, but we've really created a large demand for these drugs, and these cartels have really just met this demand. And $13 to $48 billion, I know it's kind of a wide range, but that's estimated the wholesale product of drugs that have come from Mexico into the US. Now it's compared, I mean, it's a huge number. We hear billions of dollars in bailouts and all that kind of a thing. But in comparison, Apple Corporation, which is a huge, huge corporation, posted a $34 billion earning. So we've got one of the largest corporations in the US, and drugs are, I mean, potentially making more money from drugs than these corporations are. As well, 90% of the cocaine that's imported to the US comes through Mexico. The majority of marijuana comes through Mexico. And our counter narcotics assistant budget is only $27 million. $9 million of that money goes straight to the border. So we're really not putting a ton of money, considering what our budget really is, into these drug wars. But although Mexico can't pass off all the responsibility, we still have to acknowledge that we are a large contributing factor to this violence and through our large demand for drugs. Thanks.